If you just started SpaceCraft or have been struggling for a few hours trying to progress and feel like you're always short on resources, relax, you're not alone. This is exactly the kind of game that rewards those who understand how to optimize every collection, every route, and every decision. The reality is that you can drastically speed up this process with a few simple adjustments. So today, I'm going to show you 10 tips that will completely change how you gather resources in the game. And after this, you won't get stuck farming aimlessly anymore. I'm Matthew, and the video is about to begin. One of the first things I learned, and which makes a huge difference early on, is paying attention to where you land on a planet. It might seem like a small detail, but landing on the illuminated side completely changes the pace of your progression. At the beginning of the game, you are entirely dependent on solar panels, and energy simply becomes the most important resource of all. If you land on the dark side, the situation gets complicated fast. Your energy starts to drain, mining slows down, and suddenly you're stuck, unable to do much of anything. I've been stuck like this more times than I'd like to admit, trying to farm resources while the battery slowly died. It's not worth forcing it. Now, when you prioritize the illuminated side, the game flows differently. Your ship maintains power, your equipment functions without interruption, and you can optimize your collection time much better. It seems simple, but it's the type of adjustment that drastically speeds up progress. And if you happen to get stuck in the shadows, don't panic. Just fly your ship vertically until you reach the sunlight. This trick is a lifesaver because it recharges your batteries quickly and puts you back in control of the situation. Once I started playing this way, I basically never got stuck due to a lack of power again. In the beginning, I did what most people do. I'd see raw ore, scan it, collect it, and fill my inventory without thinking twice. That was until I realized that nuggets completely changed the rhythm of exploration. Whenever the scanner marks one, I stop what I'm doing and go after it first. The difference is massive. Nuggets have a much higher market value, already come as refined material, and take up a fraction of the space that heavy raw ores do. This means more profit per trip, fewer back and forth trips to the ship, and an inventory that doesn't become a cluttered mess in the middle of a mission. In a space construction and exploration game, space and time are everything. I tend to treat raw ores as a secondary option, almost a if there's time left thing. If the planet or moon is full of nuggets, I focus on them and leave the heavy ore behind without guilt. When the ship's storage starts to get tight, this choice weighs even more. You return with valuable cargo instead of being stuffed with cheap rock. If you are just starting out or feel like your progression is slow, test this priority for a few sessions. Scan, mark the nuggets, and collect them first. It may seem like a small detail, but in SpaceCraft, these details are what separate a frustrating exploration from one that actually pays off. It's worth adjusting the habit early. One thing the game doesn't tell you directly, but which weighs heavily on your progress, is what you decide to carry in your ship. At first, I made the classic mistake. I'd fill the hold with raw ore and fly off thinking I was being productive. In practice, however, this just slowed everything down. The point is that raw ore is inefficient for transport. It takes up too much space and weighs more than it should, which directly affects the ship's performance. You feel it immediately. Movement becomes heavier, consumption increases, and without realizing it, you're spending more time than necessary on each trip. When you start refining everything beforehand, the game changes its pace. Using the smelter, whether portable or at stations, completely transforms your logistics. Ingots take up less space, weigh less, and allow you to carry much more in a single run. It is literally optimizing every trip without extra effort. Today, I practically never leave carrying raw resources. Whenever possible, I leave everything processed before transporting. This reduces the number of trips, improves ship control, and makes your progress much more effective. It's one of those simple decisions that, in the long run, makes a massive difference. At the beginning of SpaceCraft, I fell into the trap of thinking that manual mining was the right way to gather resources. I'd leave the ship, scan, collect, return, unload, and repeat. It works at the start, but there comes a time when you feel like you're running in circles. The turning point happens when you unlock automation technology and stop treating mining as manual labor. As soon as the personal factory enters the game, I prioritize setting up a base with automated extractors, smelters, containers, and logistics drones. This combo creates a passive harvesting system. While you are exploring another system, the base keeps pulling raw material, refining it, and storing it without you having to keep an eye on it. It's not just convenience, it's the biggest resource multiplier the game offers. I usually set up this structure as early as possible, even if it stays simple at first. Extractors at the right spot, smelters right next to them, and drones handling transport between containers. After that, the feeling changes. You stop hunting for ore and start managing production. Each exploration trip yields more because the base is working for you behind the scenes. If you are still mining everything by hand, it's worth stopping and investing in this transition. Manual mining is only for the beginning. Once automation kicks in, the game's pace truly picks up and resources stop being a bottleneck. Build the base, get the drones running, and go explore with a clearer head. Look, I'm going to tell you something I learned the hard way in SpaceCraft. The first base isn't just a pretty place to keep your things, it is the heart of your progress. When I started, I landed anywhere, thinking the star of the show was the ship, and built my first module in the middle of nowhere because the terrain looked flat. Big mistake, man. I lost hours walking from one side to the other, with piles of ore weighing down my backpack, while other players already had their factories running. So, before placing the first block, open the planet map by pressing M and scan the area as if you were looking for gold. What you want to find, and this is fundamental, is a quadrant where two valuable deposits are practically on top of each other. I'm not talking about close by, I'm talking about real overlap in the same quadrant. The perfect combination for the start is copper and aluminum, or iron and copper together. Why? Because this eliminates the most tedious part of the game, which is making back and forth trips between distant deposits. When you have these resources in the same quadrant, you cut the production time for steel and plates in half. And these materials are the foundation of everything you will build in the first few hours. If you find dense deposits, the ones that appear as larger quads on the map, then it's bingo, man. Now, I know it's tempting to drop on any coal or sandstone deposit that appears in front of you, but trust me, ignore those two at the start. Coal has its uses, but it won't give you the initial boost you need to create decent structures and evolve your ship. And sandstone? Don't even waste your time. The game gives you a false sense of abundance, but what really matters is the density and the right combination of ores in your backyard. I usually say that in SpaceCraft. Choosing your first base is like choosing the right neighborhood to live in. If you get the address wrong, you spend your whole life in traffic. So, before taking off for that pretty blue planet, make a note. Map open, look at the overlapping colors, confirm if there is copper and aluminum or iron and copper in the same quadrant, and only then go down to establish your first module. This sounds simple, but it is one of those decisions that separate those who spend the beginning of the game suffering from those who start with a solid base to conquer the galaxy. Do this test in your next game and tell me later how it changed your rhythm. If you are trying to progress fast playing solo, at some point you will feel that your progress starts to stall. It's not a lack of effort, it's the game's own pace, especially because of refining and manufacturing rates. Everything takes time, and doing it all on your own ends up being much slower than it seems at first. That's when I realized how much joining a corporation completely changes the experience. Suddenly, you no longer need to carry the whole game on your back. Shared boxes at bases already make a huge difference, because everything you collect can be used by other players, and the opposite happens too. The most interesting thing is how the division of tasks speeds up everything. While you can focus on going out exploring and collecting rare ores, another player can be handling mass production, refining resources, or organizing the base. This creates a constant flow of progress that simply doesn't exist in solo mode. Furthermore, you also gain access to better trades, collective contracts, and a much more efficient structure to grow fast. After I started playing in a corporation, it became clear. It's not just playing as a group, it's scaling your progress in a way that alone would take much longer. One of the things that annoyed me most was carrying resources from one base to another with the small ship. You fill your inventory, spend fuel, take forever, unload, and still need to repeat the process if the load is large. I did this thinking it was the natural way, until I realized that the game has a public transport system between stations that completely changes the logistics. Space buses, the bus between stations, exist for this. Instead of using a shuttle or a small ship to move high volumes, you send the cargo via the public transport system. The fee in credits is very low and the volume it carries is massive, and it's quick. In other words, you stop burning fuel on back and forth trips and let interbase logistics run in a much more efficient way. I started using this whenever I need to move raw materials, components, or stock between distant bases. The difference in pace is clear. Your ship is left free for exploration and construction, while the bus handles the heavy lifting. It's cheap, practical, and avoids that tiring cycle of fill, fly, unload, return. If you are still doing manual freight between stations, test the public transport. It is one of the best ways to keep multiple bases supplied without turning every transfer into a full-blown mission. Less fuel, more cargo, and more time to focus on what really matters in the game. If you are still in that early stage, breaking rocks on asteroids and feeling like everything takes too long, There is a shortcut that many people simply ignore. It also took me a while to realize this, but focusing only on basic mining is not the fastest way to progress. What really accelerates the game is starting to look at wrecks and abandoned husks scattered through space. Instead of hunting for distant asteroids, you can equip missiles on your ship and simply destroy these structures. And the difference in the return is absurd. These husks drop already processed materials and components much more advanced than what you would get mining at the start. In other words, you skip several stages of progress without needing to refine everything later. It's a massive time saver, especially in the first few hours. Once I started doing this, asteroid mining became almost a plan B. Whenever I see a wreck, I prioritize blowing it up and collecting everything there. If the idea is to truly speed up resources, this is one of the strongest methods you can use early in the game. When we start, it's very easy to get lost without knowing where to invest the first resources. I confess I wasted a good amount of time at the beginning trying to improve random things, until I realized that the secret to taking off was in the shipyard. Focusing on the right upgrades right away is what dictates the pace of your entire campaign and avoids a lot of headaches. The recipe that I always recommend is very direct and will transform your starting ship. Your first big goal should be to manufacture an FTL Eco, 3 storage compartments with capacity 100 to ensure 300 total space, a simple mining laser, and a simple resource detector. This exact set takes your ship from a junk heap status and transforms it into a true exploration machine. The difference when playing is simply brutal. With the resource detector, you stop flying in the dark and go straight to what matters. The new laser mines everything much more nimbly, and with the expanded cargo space, you spend much more time collecting valuable material and much less time making annoying back and forth trips to unload. And here is a crucial detail that many people forget. Sell all your old equipment. Leaving those initial pieces sitting there taking up space is throwing money away. Selling all of that ensures you have the credits needed to help pay for these new parts. By making these essential upgrades, your collection and detection speed simply takes off right in the first few hours of the game. At the beginning of SpaceCraft, I underestimated how much cargo capacity defines the game's rhythm. I'd go out to explore with a small cargo hold, fill it up quickly, and return to base with the feeling that each trip yielded little. The truth is simple: if the ship's storage space is limited, you spend more time going back and forth than actually collecting and building. My goal early in the game became at least 300 storage units, using extra modules as soon as possible. This already changes the flow. You can bring back more resources per trip, prioritize nuggets, and still have space left for important materials without needing to discard them halfway. Later, the next jump is to go for 1,000 plus with medium modules. Then exploration stops being short and full trips and becomes a real route. Another mistake I used to make was flying overloaded. When the ship exceeds the limit, the speed drops to something near 14%, and the journey becomes a chore. It's not worth it. If the inventory bursts, I unload what is common, leave behind what has low value, and keep the ship light enough to fly well. Space and speed go together in this game. If you feel like you are always at your inventory limit and your progression is stuttering, focus on this early. Increase cargo, avoid flying overloaded, and treat cargo as an upgrade priority. In SpaceCraft, more space isn't just convenience, it's one of the most direct shortcuts to gathering resources much faster.